Have you ever loved someone who was also the person you feared the most? Have you ever felt that your mother was both your shelter and your storm? Well, most of us have complicated families. But for India's most famous author, Arundhati Roy, that complication was a lifelong battle. Welcome, my name is Sukhpreet Singh Gyani, and you're watching the channel Unfiltered Book Talk. No spoilers, just the core review, the raw, honest truth about books. If it is on my shelf, it's getting a straightforward review. Let's talk about books. Today, we are talking about her brand new biography named Mother Mary Comes to Me. It was released in September 2025 and it is already being called one of the best books of the decade. The New York Times has listed it as a top 10 books of the year 2025. Critics are calling it a masterpiece of memory. But what is it really about? Let's dive in and find out. Before we talk about the book, let's talk about the author. We all know Arundhati Roy. She won the Booker Prize in 1997 for The God of Small Things. Since then, she has been a voice of fire. She writes about politics. She fights for environment. She stands up for the poor. Many people love her. Many are her critics too. But until now, we didn't know the real story behind her voice. We didn't know the woman who made her this way. Woman was her mother, Mary Roy. Mary Roy was a legend in Kerala, the southernmost state in India. Mary Roy was a famous educator who started the Palikodam school. She was a hero who fought the Supreme Court. She worked for equal property rights for Christian women in India. She was a revolutionary in her own way, but inside her home, things were very different. In this book, Arundhati Rai opens the doors to her childhood in a small town in Kerala, Ayamanam. Don't feel surprised if I tell you Arundhati Rai describes her mother as a gangster. At the same time, she writes Mary Roy was brilliant, but she was also very volatile. Arundhati Roy describes her childhood as walking on the eggshells. One day, her mother would be full of love, and the next day, she could be a real troublesome, writes Arundhati Roy. The author says her mother would call her daughter names. She would make her feel unwanted. Arundhati Rai shares a heartbreaking memory. When she was just 6 years old, her mother's anger was so scary that the little girl prayed for their plane to crash. She wanted everyone to die just so the anger would stop. The book tells us that many scenes in The God of Small Things were not fiction, they were real memories. Like the scene where the parents tell their children, "You take them, I don't want them." Arundhati Rai says she ran away from the home at the age of 18. She didn't leave because she hated her mother. She left so that she could continue to love her, but from a distance. Then the author describes her life in Delhi and activities as a crusader. The book then follows Arundhati Roy to Delhi. She writes that she lived in a small room near a graveyard. She was poor, she was motherless, fatherless, and jobless. But this struggle made her strong. She worked in films, she studied architecture, and eventually she became the writer we know today. The book explains why our author is so defiant. She says her rocky childhood made her a maze. She learned to see the world from different sides. She learned to spot injustice because she lived through it at her home. When she fights the government today, she is using the same courage that she used to survive her mother's house. So, why should you read Mother Mary Comes to Me? First, because of the writing. Second, because of the content. Moreover, the Guardian calls it brave and absorbing. But more importantly, you should read because it is honest. It is not a happy family story. It shows how the pain can be turned into art. If you are a fan of Roy, you will see where her characters came from. If you don't like her politics, this book might change your mind. It shows the human behind the activist. It also shows a daughter who is heart smashed by her mother's death. Even after all the abuse, she still says, "You are the most wonderful woman I have ever known." In the end, the book Mother Mary Comes to Me is about freedom. It is about breaking free from the past, but still carrying it with love. The New York Times says Roy channels moral clarity in this book. I think she channels something more. She channels the truth. So pick up a copy, read it for history, read it for the drama, but mostly read it to understand what it means to be a daughter. If you like the video, do hit the button, share your comments,